let's do IXL 7th grade A3. Go to Learning. Make sure you're on Math. Go down to 7th grade. And then A3, Multiplicative Inverses. So this exercise is a pretty simple one. The multiplicative inverse of a number is the number that you need to multiply it by in order to get 1. So what is the multiplicative inverse of 9/8? Well, if that means 9/8 times what equals 1? And the answer is pretty simple. It would just be the reciprocal of 9/8. So I put the numerator in the denominator, and I put the denominator in the numerator. So 9/8 times 8/9 is equal to 1. It might not look like it's equal to 1, but let's just see. 9 times 8 is 72. And 8 times 9 is also 72. And 72 divided by 72 is 1. So it works. So if we just take the reciprocal, then that is the multiplicative inverse. So the answer here would be 8/9. What is the multiplicative inverse of 2/5? Again, that means 2/5 times what would be equal to 1. And the answer there is just the reciprocal of 2/5, which is 5/2, or 5/2. Because if we do 2/5 times 5/2, then 2 times 5 is 10, and 5 times 2 is also 10, and 10 divided by 10 is 1. So 5/2 is the multiplicative inverse of 2/5. So in here I'm going to type 5/2. And I believe the rest of the questions are just the same. The multiplicative inverse of 7/5 would be 5/7. The multiplicative inverse of 2/7 would be 7/2, 7/2. All right, so you just take this number and flip it. You get the reciprocal of that number. Let's jump to the next level, but I think they're all the same. Oh, what's the multiplicative inverse of 1? Okay, so this is asking us 1 times what is equal to 1. And the answer there is 1. So here we'll just write 1. What is the multiplicative inverse of 13/6? So this is a question like the first few questions that we did. We did a lot of them actually. That would be 6/13. Okay, I'm going to jump ahead to the next level. Let's see, does it give me any twists here? Not really. This is, again, just flip it. This would be 25/49. Okay, what's the multiplicative inverse of 2? So this is asking us 2 times what is equal to 1. And the answer there would be 1/2. Actually, we can rewrite this 2 as 2/1. And then it's easier to see why the answer is 1/2 because the reciprocal of 2 over 1 is 1 over 2. So if we do 2 over 1 times 1 over 2, then we would get 2 in the numerator and 2 in the denominator, and 2 divided by 2 is 1. So whenever you get a whole number over here, if IXL gives you a whole number to find the multiplicative inverse of, then you could just put it over 1 and then take the reciprocal of that. Okay, so my answer here is going to be 1/2. Okay. Here I'll put the 37 in the denominator, and I'll put the 47 in the numerator. 47 in the numerator, 37 in the denominator. That's that. Okay, so let's continue. Well, here, since I have a 1 in the numerator, if that goes in the denominator, here, so we have 1 over 42 times 42 over 1 equals 42 over 42, which is equal to 1. So our multiplicative inverse is 42 over 1, but 42 over 1 is the same thing as just plain old 42. So if there's a 1 in the denominator, we don't have to write it. So we can just write 42 for this one. Okay, so here, this one is different. What is the multiplicative inverse of 1 and 5/38? So the only thing that we would have to do for this one is to first turn it into, we have a mixed number here, so let's begin by turning it into an improper fraction. And to do that, we're going to multiply the denominator by the whole number, and then whatever the result is, we will add that to the numerator. So 38 times 1 is 38, and so 38 times 1 is 38, so we have 38 now, and then we're going to add 5. So 38 plus 5 is 43. So this mixed number is equal to 43/38. So now the question is really 43/38 times what is equal to 1? And again, to find the answer to that, we just take the reciprocal of 43 over 38, and that would be 38 over 43. Okay, so this is our answer over here. What is the multiplicative inverse of -12? So again, if we have a, well, this is not a whole number, this is an integer. Integers are sort of like, actually, the whole numbers are included within the integers, but the integers also include negative numbers. But anyway, it's the same idea as what we did a few questions ago. If we have -12, what we can do here is we can put the -12 over 1 and then just find the reciprocal of that. And the reciprocal would be negative, well, forget about the negative for a second. Taking the reciprocal of 12 over 1 would just be 1 over 12. Okay, so now the question is, well, we know that we want the answer to be equal to 1, right? So should we keep the negative here for our multiplicative inverse, or should we not? Should we say that the answer is 1 over 12, or should we say that the answer is -1 over 12? Well, remember again, we want the answer to be 1. We don't want the answer to be -1. We want the answer to be +1. So we have to think about it this way. We have a negative times what would give us a positive, And the answer is a negative times a negative. A negative times another negative gives us a positive. So for the multiplicative inverse, we would keep the negative out here. And just to show you that that would give us 1, we have a negative times a negative is positive. And then 12 times 1, we've done this before. 12 times 1 is 12. 1 times 12 is 12. Okay, I don't have to put a negative sign here because I know that a negative times a negative is positive. So this result is not negative, it is positive. So I get 12 over 12, which is equal to 1, which is exactly what I wanted. So if you see a negative here in the number that you're trying to find the multiplicative inverse of, then the multiplicative inverse would also have a negative. So the answer here would be negative 1 over 12. All right, so we've done problems like that. I'm going to skip ahead to the next level. Let's go through these quickly. I'm not going to write it all out if it's something that we've done a million times. Okay, here, I'll do another mixed number question. So if we have a mixed number and we want to find the multiplicative inverse of it, first thing we need to do is turn that into an improper fraction. And we're going to do that by multiplying here and adding here. So let's see, 18 times 5 is 90, and 90 plus 5 is 95. So we're going to get 95 over 18, and then we'll take the multiplicative, or we'll just find the reciprocal of this, and the reciprocal of that will be our multiplicative inverse of the original mixed number. And that's going to be 18 over 90, 95. Okay. Okay, so this one I'm going to imagine putting the 86 over 1, and then I'll just take the reciprocal of that, and I get 1 over 86. Okay, this one, no tricks, just flip it. We get 62 over 37. That's the reciprocal. Okay, this one, again, if there's a negative in the original number, then there will also be a negative in the multiplicative inverse. And again, the reason for that is because we're trying to find the number that, when multiplied with this number, gives us positive 1. So we want our multiplicative inverse number to also be negative, because then we would have a negative times a negative, which is positive, which is what we want. So we'll keep the negative, but we'll just flip the numbers here that are in the numerator and denominator. So our answer will be negative 36 over 1. But in fact, I don't have to put over 1, because anything divided by 1 is just itself. So I can just write for this one, negative 36. Okay, for this one, I'm going to write negative 53 over 100. This one, I have negative 17 over 12. Here I have 4 over 1. But again, 4 over 1 is just 4, so I don't even need to write over 1. Here we'll get negative 61 over 44. Last one. Okay, let's see if I can get a perfect score. I don't think I made any mistakes yet, right? Let's see how I do. 11 over 73, and then hit submit. Aha, you thought that, see, I tricked you. You thought that I would hit submit with that mistake there and mess up my perfect score. I did that on purpose to see who was rooting for me and who wanted to see me mess up. Shame on you if you wanted me to hit submit there. Okay, so the answer is 11 over 73. And that's it. Bravo. All right, everybody. Hope that was helpful. Please reach out if you have any questions, and have a great day.